I'm here with Tammy Peterson. So this is like the third time we've done an interview. We did one a year ago in Arizona, and it was extremely hot, very dry, and I had never experienced that before. So I was like telling Andrea the whole time, I was like, man, this place is hot. Like it is hot. So
Can't step on the outside. It's hot.
it is. And so now we're just doing it online. So, but I think this will be an interesting conversation. There's a couple of topics that we wanted to hit on. Of course, who knows where the conversation will go. I guess first question, like the last year for you has obviously been a trying year, a challenging year. So how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I've learned a lot of things about how to be a caregiver in a tricky situation. Mm-hmm. Although I have a lot of help.
Yeah.
And Jordan made that possible because he made some money. So I have a lot of help, and I'm very grateful for that help, because who knows what I would be doing otherwise. I don't know if I'd still be doing my podcast and stuff, because it's pretty all consuming to be someone's caregiver.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that makes
it's
sense.
really a 24-hour job. So there is really, it takes the neighborhood, it takes the community. That's why that's partly why I want to talk about community today, because it does take community. And without community, we're so limited. We're so less limited when we lean on each other. It's so much better. We can go so much further and get so much more done. I mean, how did they build all of those cathedrals and stuff? It wasn't one family, right? It was generations of families that built those grand cathedrals in Europe.
Yeah.
And it's the same with everything we do now. We think that life is different now, but it's not, So Jordan is, he's getting better, but he's still in a place that is helping him with his recovery. He's got a swimming pool. He's got a really good place to live with good air quality. And he's got people there who are eating with him and playing cards with him and just being present, going for walks with him and stuff. He's starting to drive again. So he's driving to places, and he's writing 6 hours a day. So he's actually starting to work again, but he's learning what he has to do to calm his nervous system, which has been the thing that has been the challenge so far. And you have to live in a certain way. Lots of people live that way. They do yoga, they meditate, they go to church and they pray. I read a scientific paper yesterday, a scientist who took a nun and put her in a scanner. I don't know if you saw that. It was posted. Yeah. And it was really interesting. So prefrontal dementia, and the prefrontal cortex is the executive functions of us. So as we get older, we rely on them to give us our insight into different things and to track conversation and to come up with creative thoughts. That's our prefrontal cortex.
Sure.
And in dementia, that's what is targeted. So when you start looking for words and you think, I know that, what is that? Or everybody's talking, you're thinking, what are they talking about? I just can't follow anymore. And then you got to think, there's something going on here. That's not good. Turns out the nun in the scanner, when she prays, her prefrontal cortex lights up. So silence, focused silence, is what excites the prefrontal cortex. And so that, along with other things that people can do, like physical exercise and things, that eating, not eating seed oils and things like that, and dyes and things like that. You want to stay away from that stuff. You have to stay away from that stuff if you want to live a good life, but also prayer. And so focused silence, and even better if it's in community. That's what he found. So that's a church. Isn't that cool?
It's amazing. Yeah, I think.
I said, I want to talk to this scientist. That's good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think obviously prayer is incredibly important, but I think it's interesting when the scientists are doing actual science and looking into what's actually happening. You start to realize that what they find, if you look at it the right way, is actually proof of the faith in some capacity. So this is a proof, that prayer and contemplation and meditation it's not just beneficial for your health. It's just, there's something deeper there, spiritual.
Harvard study. It was a Harvard study.
At Harvard.
Scientists were wrong about prayer is what the name is. That's the title of the YouTube video.
That's like the best title because, of course, the scientists were wrong about prayer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Anyway. Like, have you guys, I guess, how has that all, the challenge of the past year, like, affected your faith or strengthened your faith? Because, well, and I'm even interested in, like, Jordan. I have no idea where he's at with faith in general.
Well, who does, though? You know, it's that pretty private.
Sure. Okay. So we don't have to talk about, but what, how has your faith been strengthened over the past year, just with the challenges?
Well, my friend, my Catholic friend who sponsored me to join the Catholic Church, Queenie Yu, who came to the hospital and prayed the rosary with me for 5 weeks. She came to Scottsdale a few weeks ago for a couple of days, and she suggested that I go to Mass every day. And so I started going to Mass every day. You know, some days maybe I have a podcast in the morning, so I don't go that morning. But other than that, I go to Mass every day.
Yeah.
And go to confession often.
Wow.
Not once a month, but more like once every couple of weeks. So pretty often. And that's been really interesting for me because as a new Catholic, I wasn't going to confession for years. So now I am. And so now I'm experiencing the fruits of that. And it's very, very interesting how it works, because when you get there, there's only certain times you can go to confession. And so then there's a lineup of people. And in that lineup, you're thinking, okay, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to ask for? Why am I here? What sin am I struggling with?
Yeah.
And so then you go through that. And when you get to the door, whatever you open the door with, that's what God wants you to talk about. So then you just walk in and you talk about what that is. And then they give you a prayer. So the last time I went to confession was just before I went to the ARC conference in London.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew that I had been to Turning Point USA with Erica Kirk.
Yeah.
She wasn't there when I was there. She just went there and left. And then I went there and I left. But I went there for a women's leadership conference, which they have maybe annually, probably. Yeah. And she invited me to go speak. So I spoke on the marriage vows for about 10 minutes. Wow. And so I mentioned Jordan, and I mentioned I had hoped that he would be getting better, and everybody clapped. And I thought, oh, they want to know that. Yeah. Right? They want to know that. Of all the things I've just said, they really want to know that. So when I went to the ARC conference, I thought, I'm going to go to the prayer breakfast, and they want me to speak at the prayer breakfast. So I'll speak at the prayer breakfast. But what am I going to speak about? I'm going to speak about how I have hope for Jordan's recovery, for sure, because I know that's what they want to know about. But I had just gone to confession. So I talked about the confession that I went to and the prayer that I was given. And I told them what the prayer was. And later in the conference, people came up to me and said, you know, because you were vulnerable in your address at the prayer breakfast, everyone shed their facades and became vulnerable at the conference. And so it was a really good conference. I'm not saying that I had an overwhelming influence on how it went, but I had some influence, and the influence was in a positive respect. And I'm very grateful for that, because that's just what increased faith does for you.
Yeah. I'm interested in going to Mass every day, partly because I'm a Protestant. I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't know what Catholic Mass even is. Like, so when you're going every single day, what are you doing?
Well, I get there and I sit right beside the adoration. So Queenie would say, come, we'll sit over here. This is where we're going to sit. So I sit there all the time now, and then I can be close to Christ, and that's why I'm there. So I might as well sit close to where Christ is. That's why I'm there. Right. And I get on my knees and I thank God for the day, you know, and everything, like you do when you kneel. And I like that. In the Catholic Church, you can kneel. Yeah. That's really important to me.
Yes.
And then I've been reading a book, the Handbook of Prayer. I had a friend of Queenie's who's part of Opus Dei. He came from LA and met me in Scottsdale. He was a lawyer who lives in the Opus Dei way, and he gave me a handbook of prayer, and I've been reading it, and in it, it tells you what you do when you prepare for Mass. And I didn't know that. So now I know that better, and I'm thrilled about it. So what you do is you meditate on the way to church, like same thing as confession. What am I here for? What am I going here for today? Let's see. What are my sins? And or how am I struggling? And who am I worried about? And all these things. And you take whatever you can find and say it's that you lack faith. So you go there and you get on your knees and you just say, I'm here. I lack faith. Help me. And then as the Mass goes on, you pray for that to happen. And then you pray for people that you love for that to happen. And then you pray for the congregation to have that happen to them. So when you leave Mass, you feel like you're with everybody. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
It is. We went to an Anglican church for like a year, and then it got weird. A lot of churches get weird. And so, they got doctrinally weird, where there was like liberal weird stuff. But one of the things that they did that's similar to the Catholic Church, which seems insignificant to a lot of Protestants, but it's not insignificant at all, is that you would kneel to I think it was during confession, but I can't remember. Like they had the kneeling
a couple of times.
Yeah, a couple of times. Yeah. And I don't know if we ever actually did it. I'm gonna be completely honest with you, because I grew up like super like low church, non-denominational. So to begin with, I was like, this is weird. Like, I don't need to do that. And as we've been out of that church, we're at a Presbyterian church now, which I really love, but I more and more have been convinced that the physical embodiment of the thing that you're doing is important, to give your full body to this. So when you kneel and you bow your head, it's like, you're doing this because you're submitting your whole self to Jesus. You're saying, I'm praying to you, but I'm worshiping you. And I think that is a major flaw in Protestantism that I think the Catholics obviously do really well. There's a full embodied worship, is like a whole thing. You're doing like a fully embodied worship, and that's just different. And I think it's important because I don't know, as I'm talking right now, I just think that the main thing that fights against is pride. One of the reasons I didn't want to kneel probably was just because, I don't know, I'm above that or something, apparently, I guess.
Exactly. I'm above that, yeah.
So, and that's just stupid and arrogant.
We're above that before we realize we're not.
Right. And it's almost an inversion of things, like I think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They wouldn't kneel to worship. Was it Nebuchadnezzar? Oh,
I don't know who all these people are. Who are
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the Old Testament? Oh, this is the classic. This is okay.
Where's that from?
I can't remember what book it is, but it happened in the Bible, so trust me. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I think it's Nebuchadnezzar, created King Nebuchadnezzar of, I don't remember what's this civilization, but he created a huge golden statue of himself, and he made everybody bow to the golden statue. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, "We're not doing that. We don't bow to anybody except for God."
Yeah.
And so he put them into a burning fire, like he was going to burn them alive, and they walked in willfully. And Nebuchadnezzar and his people saw that there were, instead of 3 men in the fire, there were 4 men in the fire, that God joined them in the fire and kept them alive, and they walked out of the fire. Oof. Which is really interesting. I haven't even read it in a while, but
that's a great story.
It's an amazing story. It's one of these situations in the Old Testament where you see Jesus, the shadow of Christ, walking in through the fire, which is very fascinating.
Oof. Wow.
Jesus with them in the fire. Hopefully I'm getting that story right. I definitely
sounds likely.
Hopefully. But anyways, it's an inversion of that though, right? Like to not bow to the true God, like you're doing the opposite of what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did.
We walk into the church and we say, well, I don't like that priest, or I can't understand that. I can't hear him. Or there's just a bunch of old people here. That's pathetic. I'm going to leave. Or whatever.
Or the architecture isn't modern enough. There's not much.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's not at the right time. It's not in the right neighborhood.
Yeah.
So there's something wrong with it. It's like, well, you know what? That's very sneaky because God has put all those challenges in front of you for you to be able to overcome them. All you have to do is get down on your knees and say, no matter what, I'm here with you, Lord. No matter what.
We also, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
But also,
it worked for me for years. I never went to church because I had all the excuses in the world.
Oh, yeah. No, one of the excuses, not excuse, but one of the things that we fail to think about when we're making all those excuses is the church just got a lot worse since I walked in. So maybe I need this. There's a good quote.
Yeah.
Do you know Charles Spurgeon? Maybe you don't.
I've heard the name, but I don't know.
He's like the opposite of Catholic. So, but he's a Baptist preacher from the 1800s in London. Really amazing preacher. Like I love Charles Spurgeon. He's awesome. Don't agree with all of his theology, but he's great. And he has a quote that said it's something like, don't be dismayed or don't get down when somebody says something bad about you. He says, you're far worse than what they think that you are, and I think
I still have trouble with that only from certain people. If certain people don't accept my offer, whatever it is, if they don't accept it, it stays with me for longer than it might, and probably doesn't stay with me as long as it used to. But it still stays with me. It's still a challenge for me. So yes.
I think it's a difficult balance though, because I don't think I struggle on the opposite end of that. Like I just don't care at all about when anybody. I took your guys' personality test, and I'm a 0 percentile agreeableness, which I've worked on. Tried to be a little bit more agreeable on things.
Well, it's better for it to be conscious anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think that I'm on the other end of it, like not caring at all what anybody thinks ever can cause a lot of problems. So I think that there's got to be like a sweet, like,
You're a father, aren't you?
I am. So
gorilla father or a bad gorilla father?
I try to be a good one, so I've worked on, and I try not to talk. I mean, I'll talk about it a little bit on the podcast. I try not to talk about this stuff on podcasts. I feel like it's too emotional, but I have tried to work on this stuff because I feel like, just the way that I am and my personality is extremely disagreeable. And so that just like, can have its own problems. You probably know. So you just don't want to do things for no reason. You just don't want to do it. Like, I don't know. I can't
say no and don't say yes and don't do it. That's the worst.
And I've tried to be like with my kids, especially with my wife and my kids, I try to really combat that as much as I possibly can, because I don't want them to hate me. So that's like incentive, but two, I don't think that I think it's wrong to just be disagreeable all the time. I try to put it in its right place. Like, I think that the church is a disaster in the modern age. And so I think, being disagreeable towards bad doctrine is good, but I think being disagreeable in general for no reason is bad. I think Martin Luther, sorry, you're Catholic, but I think Martin Luther was disagreeable at the right time in history towards the right things.
He wouldn't have got away with everything he got away with if he hadn't been. If he hadn't insisted. But that's one thing I'd like to talk about just a little bit as a wife. Anything that I haven't managed to see come to fruition in my marriage was because I didn't insist for it to happen.
What do you mean by that? What does that mean?
Well, we can have dreams of things that we want to happen, but if we don't insist on them happening, they're not going to happen. It's up to us. It isn't up to anybody else but us, because we're the only ones who know what it is that we aspire to do.
Give an example of that, like how insisting.
Send the kids to the right school, or which church are we going to go to, or how are we going to spend our evenings together, husband, or there's so. What am I going to eat today? I mean, there's all these things. We have a choice in everything we do. Everything.
That's a good point.
The reason we do them the right is because we want to be of service to our loved ones. And so we have to do what would be right with God all the time.
That's interesting. Especially from the wife's perspective, being insistent. I mean, my wife and I were talking about this last night, that it does seem like a lot of men in society, their wives, one, don't encourage them. So that's not
a problem.
Good. And then also, to what you're saying, part of not encouraging them is not insisting on their husbands reaching the fullest potential that they could reach. So there's almost sort of like there's a discouragement, I think, towards husbands, because we live in a very feminist society. So a lot of women are like angry at their husbands all the time. And I've never heard it said that way, that to like, you got to insist upon something happening, of course, because everything's working against you, like the devil and the world and your flesh and sin. And so you have to really insist upon it. But I do think that sometimes women in our society will almost insist upon the opposite for their husbands. And it will create a situation where their husbands just become like, for lack of a better term, like neutered men, like they've got nothing left in them.
Yeah, that's
Do you
terrible.
see that?
That's a terrible thought. That's a terrible thing if that is happening. And I've heard it lots of places. So I imagine it's true. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I was walking down the sidewalk the other day, when I was in the city by the coffee place, and I could hear this motorbike coming, and it was really loud. And it zoom, you know how some guys, they just put it to the floor. They're getting to the next light or whatever they're doing.
Yeah. Right.
And this woman was walking by me on the sidewalk, and there's a bunch of people milling around. There was a young couple standing there. Anyway, this woman walks by me, and she rolls her eyes as she walks by me. And I just go, men. And of course, everybody turns to me like, are beautiful. I said, as she walked by, and this man, big smile on his face. I couldn't get any more words together. That's all I could get together.
Those are the only things that could come out at the time. That's funny.
But I wanted to defend. And I don't like them when they roar on their motorbikes either. But you know what? What's it to you? Like, why are you like judging him like that? Like, what did you do today?
Right. What did you? Yeah. Well, and it's also symbolic of something else.
Yes.
I think that revving your engines, a lot of that stuff, that it's sort of masculine rebellion, loud, kind of in your face sort of stuff, that is a rebellion against the feminization of society.
Yeah,
so a lot of these men are just,
very well be, it's not lordly. It's not, you're not being a savior, you're not staying in what the honorable man might be, but you're going to react to what's going on in society, and that could be it. Right. And so women say, why are men acting like that? And I say, well, what are you doing to make them into these godly men that you're looking for? It's up to us to call for that.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I just don't know how to fix that. I mean, the women that I know of my generation, other than my wife, they're angry. They're bitter. They've been controlled by the spirit of feminism, and they can't see past that. And they belittle their husbands. They get angry at them. If they have husbands, a lot of them don't have husbands. So they just belittle the men around them. And, there are places, like even in my hometown, there are literal like shops or something that men go to, where they can play video games with each other for hours on end. So
there's two things we can talk about there. We can talk about men need places with other men where there are no women. And then we can talk about feminism and how that's really destroyed women and their communities and their decisions that they're making with their husbands and their families.
Well, go ahead. I mean, because I think that, which one do you want to talk about first? I mean, go ahead.
Well, I'm a woman, so I'll talk about that.
Sure.
And I'll talk about women too in our communities. It used to be mothers groups. I had mothers groups. My kids are now in their 30s. So when I was a mom, there weren't any telephones, and there was barely the internet. When Julian was born, the internet was just getting put together. And so most of the people that we knew, they didn't have that to contend with, which people do now. And I understand that problem. But taking that aside, my family, they were feminists. I was taught about what good women were in my family. What not just good women, what hardworking women, what it was, and that kind of grated on me.
Did that just mean like go get a job? Like that was sort of in the workforce sort of thing?
No, that was at home in my family.
No, but I'm saying, did they encourage you towards like being a strong woman means to go work in the workforce, or was
go
it
to university?
To be a good mother?
Sure, that was necessary. My mom and dad were working class people. They were an accountant and a businessman. They never had any secondary education, but they wanted us to learn to swim, to ride a bike, to go to university, all the things they didn't have because they were working class people from the farms and from the railway. My dad was a railway worker. And so we had to do those things and we were expected to go. So when I was graduating high school, it was obvious that I was going to go to university. I had no idea what I was going to study, but it was obvious that I was going to university. And so we all went. But it took me a few years to wrangle myself, because I was creative. Everything looked interesting. So I didn't know what to study because it all looked interesting to me. I'd studied arts for a year and I'm like, yeah, that's really interesting. And then I didn't have any money in Montreal and it was French. It was 1980, just after the FLQ. And there were machine gun policemen in front of the banks. It was, you didn't want to speak English. It was really, you couldn't, even if you tried to speak French, they knew you were English, it was hostile. And so I had to move somewhere where I could work in English. I moved to Ottawa, which is a 2-hour drive away.
Wow.
And so then I went to university there and I made some money there. But then I studied a little bit of psychology and but I worked for a year. And so I had to find my way. And finally I read a book called What Color's Your Parachute? And that tells you what you might be interested in. And so I went to a counselor at the university and I said, I like medicine. I like sports. I like teaching. What do I do? And she said, kinesiology. And I said, okay, whatever that is, I'll study that. And so I studied that, but I recognized while I was doing that too, that I had to do all 4 years and I had to finish because I'd chosen something. I had to put my nose to the grindstone and just do it. And so I did it and finished it. And that was really good because then everything that you finish, my sister said, you have to get your badges in life. And it's not what you do, it's whether you finish it well or not.
Yeah.
Whether you move up or you move down, right? So if you finish, then the next thing you can do can build on that, obviously. And so, but as a 22-year-old or something, you don't know those things. You're just grasping at straws kind of, and it's hard to know. And especially when you've been fed feminism, because you think that you are going to be the breadwinner. You're going to be the one who is, providing for the family. Are you going to marry? Well, do I have to? Do I have to marry or can I do this on my own? And do I have to have children? Well, there's a birth control pill. I don't have to have children. And so you're faced with all of these questions and all of these answers that are, I can do it on my own. Yeah. And that's isolating. And it's, I guess, what do they call it? Empowering, but only for a very short time before you try to put it in practice. Kind of like communism, it sounds really good. And then you put it in practice and then you realize actually it makes no sense at all.
Right. It destroys people's lives.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the confusing thing about feminism that I've wondered about because I can't get into the psychology of a woman. I can't do it. I have too much testosterone. I know some men who can, but not me. So I've always wondered though, what is the appeal to that? Because I don't get it. The old way of doing things was if you're a woman, you find a man and he takes care of you. I don't know. I mean, I feel like that sounds kind of nice, especially in the modern world where it's not like everybody's farming and coal mining and stuff like that. You can work a decent job, have a nice house. The wife stays home with the kids. She gets to basically do, taking care of kids is not easy. So don't get me wrong, but she can engage in some of the things that she's interested, hobbies or whatever it is. And, I don't know what women do when they stayed home, but they do stuff that
Well, what they do,
is
they used to
interesting.
cut all the wood and
Yeah.
for the entire farm. And then they would milk the cows and they would, pluck the chickens and, they were busy. They were busy.
No, they definitely were busy.
And they were washing all the clothes. But then we got washing machines and then we got dishwashers and
right.
And so we got all these. So then in our time, actually running a house is pretty easy now.
That's kind of what I'm saying. So I don't know why.
And I don't have to have a baby if I don't stop taking the birth control pill.
Definitely.
So now I have to make a choice.
Yeah.
It's a conscious choice. God never gave us a choice. He said, no, I'll just make the woman fertile once a month, and I will set it up so that men and women are attracted to each other at a certain time of the month, and you'll have children. Oh, but scientists, we figured out how to stop that. So now we're in control of it. But are we sophisticated enough or humble enough to be in control of that? No, we're not.
Absolutely not.
We're not. No. And so now we have no children.
And we have a death rate higher than our birth rate.
Yeah.
And we're literally committing civilizational suicide.
Right.
And it's just happening right before our eyes.
Yeah.
But do you think that that's something like when you were younger?
It was very confusing.
It's extremely confusing. I mean, was it just in the background? Was it just sort of like, this is just how you live. This is just what you do.
Yeah.
Like, did you think to yourself,
I didn't even question it. I didn't question it. Not really. I definitely was attracted to men, but I used them kind of instrumentally because if you're taking a birth control pill, they can't get you pregnant. So what difference does it make if you sleep with them or not?
And sex becomes a powerful.
And so that was confusing. Yeah. That was super confusing, and it wasn't helpful. It wasn't helpful. When I think back, I did use some of my boyfriends instrumentally because when I broke up with them, I hurt them. Yeah. And because they didn't have the birth control pill, I did.
Right.
So it changed my point of view. So it changed my behavior. Right. And so that's been a problem since then, since the 60s.
Is that reversible? I mean, it seems like it's just continued to go down this path. That's true. Well, it's more and more difficult nowadays. I mean, I growing up, most of the girls that I knew all had, I didn't know any. I think that's like the big problem is that a lot of these women are having sex for the exact same reason that you're saying. And also it's the same with the men too. Like I know that is.
Well, it's affecting the men for sure.
Right. And I think that they use it too, though. I think
it's they do. Why wouldn't they? Because men, gay men have sex all the time. Lesbian women never have sex. That's the difference between the sexes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that? Not to get into the details.
I don't know, but that's the truth though.
Okay. I mean, so the feminism that was there, yes. I guess what kind of shifted your attitude? Was it just getting married and having kids and realizing?
Marrying Jordan, that shifted my attitude. I mean, how could that not shift my attitude?
Well, was he saying things like this back then? Was he sort of
when we got married, he said, you have to tell the truth or we can't get married.
Yeah,
period.
That's a big deal.
And I was like, oh, okay. So I had to go back and look at myself. I had to carry a Bible in my pocket and look at myself. What am I doing that's sinful? Let's see if I can live in truth. And so I came back. I thought, okay, I can do this. I'll do this. And so I did. Right. That was a good challenge for me, and I wanted it. Yeah. And by then I was 26, and I had lived with a guy for 6 years. That didn't go anywhere. I lived with another guy for a couple of years. I got pregnant with him because. And it was weird, I'd lived with this guy and then I wasn't healthy. Birth control was not good for me. It made me depressed.
You mean just the effects of the chemical? Yeah.
Yeah. It made me depressed. And so, but I didn't recognize it very fast. And, but when I did recognize it, I went off of it. And then I used, like the rhythm method, which married couples use so that they can have a baby, yes. But what single people have, and then they have a baby. That's what the rhythm method does. Because it doesn't work. It's anyway, it's hard to avoid that. So were there negative, I mean, aside from the pill, you lived with
people you weren't married to.
Yes.
Like that's a popular thing.
Yes, very.
Nowadays.
And
Was
I
it
imagine
negative?
it is now, but I don't know. I'm old, so I don't know that.
I mean, I think everyone does that. Like
Yeah.
people just aren't getting married anymore. So what sort of
that's
negative
right.
effects, like what negative effects did that have on you? Just living with
Well, I
somebody
wasn't
else.
married.
Yeah, that's a negative effect. Yeah.
So
that's
I was
true.
going to leave, or he was going to leave.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you're not married. I do know some people who are not married and have stayed together, but I think that's rare. I think that's rare. So it's not a good bet. Let's put it that way. It's just not a good bet. It's better to get married. And there's more reasons to get married than that, because there's marriage vows. And in the marriage vows, you are to stay together through sickness and health until death do you part. And I would bet whatever I could bet, everybody is going to have those moments where those things are going to be called into question, and they are going to either have to stand by their marriage vows or get a divorce. And going into the church and getting married gives you a community that you can count on to support you when you want to give up. And that'll help. And you can go to church. You can go to church and you can pray because you're a sinner and you're useless. And so is everybody else. But together, we can cobble together a reasonable plan to try to bring you and your husband back together again. I mean, you can do that. And so that's why we need the community, and the community has to be nested in the church, because we are going to be given, especially now with, not just with abortion, not just with computers and phones. Those things are going to be gone in a couple of years anyway, right? People are having car accidents because they're on their phones. They don't work. So they're going to be gone.
What's going to replace it though?
Good question.
Probably something.
But something is going to replace it. I can tell, because they're just not, they're trouble.
Yeah, they are. Real quick, just about what you're saying about marriage vows. I think that's interesting, because when Andrea and I were dating, I would say this thing to her that other people didn't like, but I think it's true, and I don't really care that other people didn't like it. It was, I would always say, like, I want you to be more committed to marriage, the biblical idea of marriage, than you are to me, because I'm stupid and I'm messed up, and at some point you're going to hate me and I'm going to hate you. And that's just, if we're being honest, like we can pretend like we don't hate each other. At some point we're going to hate each other. I'd watch my parents' marriage, like there were fights and it would get volatile. And in those situations, a lot of people just are like, we're done. We're calling it quits. We're done with the marriage.
Like they can find a better person, right?
Yeah.
And that it has nothing to do with how they acted in the marriage.
Exactly. And as if everybody isn't an evil sinner. Like, come on. Like this is, the idea is ridiculous, but I know just based on what I observed as a child, we're not going to like each other at some point. So there's got to be some deeper principle that we're committed to that isn't just, I love you, you love me, whatever, like modern platitude that we can think of. It had to be deeper than that. And so some people would be like, well, why would you ever say that to your wife? You're going to like hate each other. It's like, I don't know, because I think human beings aren't all like lovely and amazing all the time. And I think that people do really bad and dumb things. And so I don't know, that was just something where I started to notice then that people would write their own marriage vows, and they would be really, really shallow and just kind of lame. And it was just like funny. They tried to be funny. It's like, I don't think that this is funny at all. I don't think that like your marriage vows, that's sort of a commitment that you're making that is either going to make or break your life.
And your children's lives.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So it's just so important that people have a commitment to something deeper than just this sort of arbitrary love for each other, especially when you're like 20 years old and you're extremely naive, but also there are other things working in your biology that is affecting the way that you think about the other person. You're ready to have sex. And so, that affects, you think you love the person, but it's like I don't know. I just think that there are a lot of things working against young people. And so they have to have a commitment to a principle. And I think that the marriage principle is that commitment. And if you're committed to that, the principle of marriage has lasted all of human history. So it can surely last the length of your marriage, of your life. And I think that it can help you through a healthy and good marriage with your spouse. I don't
And
know
it
if that
can
makes
help
any
other
sense.
people if they see
Yeah.
that, if they see you do it. So that's why the community is important, is because you have to see that it's working in someone else's life too. Yeah. And we don't have that much example now. So people don't know why they should do it.
Yes. All the friends that I grew up with, their parents were divorced. That's the other thing. That's really interesting. So I'm obviously in a younger generation, but they nobody, I know very few people who didn't grow up in divorced families. Sometimes parents divorced 2, 3, or 4 times. And that has shattered people's conception of marriage. And they're sort of just like, I'm opting out. I can think of one person in particular, but who's just like, he won't get married. He just won't do it. Has a kid, 2 kids with a woman, and he just won't get married no matter what. And it's like, I kind of get it, because if I don't get it, I think it's wrong, but I get, if the only thing that you've been seeing your whole life is divorce after divorce after divorce after divorce, you're going to come to the conclusion that the problem's with marriage, when in reality, the problem's actually just with the people who are in the marriage. I think. I don't know. What do you think about that? Why, how do you restore commitment to marriage?
Hey, there's the $1 million question.
Right.
Really, because, well, I think you go to church. I think that's what you do. It's funny, when I first had Jonathan Pageau on my podcast, we were talking about the rosary. I wanted to understand it better. And I don't know why I chose him. I knew him, and I was kind of shy, and I didn't know who else to ask, really. And he was gracious enough to say yes. So he came on my podcast 3 times and talked to me about the rosary, but he kept saying, and you got to go to church. And really when it comes down to, you got to go to church. Yeah. And he wasn't pushy, but he was pretty insistent. He was insistent enough that I remembered. And so then I started to think, okay, I grew up in the Protestant church. I stopped going to church when I was 12, because that's when my last sibling left home. And then my parents didn't go, so I didn't go. So that was the end of that idea. And what happens when you do that? What happens when you do that? Well, then you start to make your own decisions. And things start to go sideways. That's what happens when you don't go to church. And so I thought, okay, the Orthodox Church or the Catholic Church, because I want more scripture. And
wait, real quick. Sorry to interrupt. That's interesting. Why didn't you equate more scripture with the Protestant church? Just as a Protestant, we always like to say that we're the Bible people. So why did you say? People? Well, I don't. That's the sola scriptura is one of the central.
I guess probably the practice of the Mass.
Gotcha. Okay.
So not just the scripture, but that the scripture and the actions were alive in the church.
The story of the liturgy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah. The Eucharist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. The sacrament. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All of that. I wanted to. I felt that it was so real that if I didn't practice it in the fullest way I could, then I was coming up short. Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, I actually controversially agree with that. Like, I think that the liturgy, my only, I guess, interaction with the liturgy is Anglican liturgy, which isn't exactly like the Catholic liturgy, but it's a story. Yeah. It's a story. You participate in the story of the liturgy every single week. It's like
every time they say, and I give you peace, you fall on your knees.
And I don't know if they do this in it's awesome. I mean, I don't know if they do this in the Catholic Church. You'll have to tell me, but in the Anglican Church, when the service starts, the priest walks in holding the cross, and so people bow their head to the cross. I don't know if they do that in the Catholic Church.
On Sundays? Yeah. Saturday nights and Sundays?
Yeah. I just think that that's like a really, like when we were going to the Anglican Church, my kids, they loved that. Like the fact that the cross would walk in and you'd make
Orthodox
a physical
Church
gesture
too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. And I think that that's something that the Protestants, and I know why they have gotten rid of it. And I understand their theological reasonings for it, and some of them make sense. But I think that a lot of the reductionistic tendencies of Protestantism has basically made Christianity into some sort of intellectual assent rather than a embodied practice.
Well, we're really, really, we need all the help we can get.
Yeah, we do.
And I definitely do. I need all the help I can get. So I thought that taking an easier way wasn't for me. It hadn't worked before. I didn't stay with it. And I enjoyed going to church when I was a little kid. I liked Sunday school, and I liked singing the hymns, and I liked going to church. I liked that some of my family were there and my friends were there, and I liked the community aspect of it. I liked the singing. I liked the Christmas story and everything. I liked it all, but it still didn't hold me there. And so when I came back to the Catholic Church, I asked my son and his wife and kids to come with me, and they came to Mass a couple of times. But my son's wife is Protestant, and so that's the tradition that she's followed, although she was not following it. And they came with me, but they didn't understand the Mass. And they said, well, we don't understand it. And later I thought, well, if you want to be a computer programmer, you don't just sit down at the computer and think, okay, now I'm a computer programmer. You have to go through, and that's the thing about the Catholic Church. You have to go through the catechism, and you have to learn the liturgy. And I would say even now, after a number of years, there's still a couple of prayers that I'm not exactly sure of yet. And so there's a lot of learning that goes into it. But it's good. It's good work. That's good work.
I want to ask you, I guess I'll ask you this theological question. And if you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I think it's interesting because my understanding of the Mass, the Catholic Mass, is that it's a re-sacrificing of Christ.
That's right.
So his body and blood are broken through transubstantiation, which is the theological terminology.
Yeah.
But basically just that it's his true body, it's his true blood, and they've been broken continually. Every time you do the Mass, you're just continually breaking, which that's, if there were a core distinction between Protestant and Catholic, like that's it. Like that's like the core distinction, the Catholics continually sacrifice Christ, and the Protestants believe that the sacrifice is once and for all, that when Christ says it is finished on the cross, that was the final sacrifice. That was the final sacrifice of all that was foreshadowed in the Old Testament.
Right. It's
more complicated. I'm not trying to make it not complicated. It's more complicated than that. I think both positions are more complicated than that. But when Protestants engage in the sacrament of communion, I think in its deepest sense, it's a symbol of Christ's sacrifice, but it's not a re-sacrificing of Christ's actual body and blood. That's how I've understood it. In the good Protestant churches. In the bad Protestant churches, it's just like a cracker and grape juice, and nobody cares about it. So we won't talk about them. But that's non-denominationalism, which I think is messed up. But I guess my question is what do you think about from the biblical theological perspective? And we don't need to debate about it. I'm just genuinely curious. Mm-hmm. The re-sacrificing of Christ, what is it? How do I ask this without being confrontational? Because I'm not trying to be. How do you view that, the re-sacrificing of Christ, as far as the Bible? I mean, Jesus is sacrificed. He says it is finished. And the Catholic Church continues to sacrifice. It's confusing to me, and I'm not saying this in an argumentative way at all. I'm actually interested in it because I respect a lot of Catholics, and I don't know. I'll keep some comments that I have in my head to myself. But what do you think about that? Just the continual re-sacrificing of Jesus. Sorry for the 10-minute.
That's
question.
All right. So I would just have to tell you my personal experience with it.
Yes.
Which is new. And so it's also fresh in my mind. And I've been reading about it too. The whole idea of the substantiation.
Transubstantiation.
Transubstantiation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with transgenderism.
No,
Sorry,
no,
that's
that's
a
not the
terrible
same
joke.
thing. That's not the same thing.
Right.
And I've also, I don't know where I read this, but I have been reading about how they have looked scientifically at the host.
Yeah.
And they've found blood and tissue.
Yeah.
And so
I know. Oh man.
Yeah.
I know.
Right. So I don't know. I haven't done that. Like that's not
for sure.
but I have definitely gone to mass and with the intention of giving up my sins. And it seems deeply transformational to walk up there with everyone else and to receive this host it and then to put it on my tongue and to feel it there inside me. It feels like something that is nourishing and and also nourishing and everlasting. It does feel that way. And when I first get there, like I said, you have to prepare to come to mass. And I think that's part of the whole thing is when you come in to mass, you are already asking for your sins to be lifted from you. So that is your meditation as you come into the mass. And then when they start the whole proceedings, you continue to ask to be lifted up really and have your sins shed from you. And the action of going up there and asking and offering yourself, like just offering everything. There's something to that does give you a new beginning at the end. And I think that it's probably best to practice it as often as you can to make it really deep.
Being born again.
But yeah, it's quite mystical. It is definitely mystical. And they have continued to keep that mystery alive in the Catholic Church. And that is something to be thankful for. Right there.
Yeah. I think you're, I think the closest I ever got to that was in the Anglican Church. And well, there's not many good Anglican churches in Madison, Wisconsin. There's not many good churches in Madison, Wisconsin just in general, but we were at the Anglican Church and it's very similar as far as the liturgy and the entire service. It builds to the sacrament of communion. That's the point of it, which was like
the whole point.
And it's like, duh, that should be the point of it. Like I grew up in non-denominational Baptist churches and the point of those sermons were to hear some guy try to preach not very well, but try to give a good sermon. It was like, that was the whole point of it. And then you do communion once a month and you're like, okay, so you sing a couple of pretty annoying songs that are very modern. You listen to like a subpar sermon from a guy who might be a heretic. And then this is this is how I viewed it. And then at the end you sing a bunch of like lame songs again, and then you leave. And that was it. So I thought that's what church was. And then I read a book called The Heritage of Anglican Theology by J.I. Packer, who's an Anglican theologian who he died in 2021, I think, or maybe 2019. I love J.I. Packer. He's awesome. But he explained the liturgy and then we went and did it. And the fact that it leads, of course, it should lead to Christ's sacrifice. Like that's the whole point of it. It's not about some guy preaching from the stage. Obviously the preaching of the word is extremely important, but the most important thing is engaging with the sacrament and remembering and understanding what was given up for you so that you could be saved. And it was something that it clicked and I was like, I think I've been doing this wrong my whole entire life. Obviously it's not exactly the Catholic way of doing it, but I think that there's a lot of similarities there where if the service and if the point is leading towards Christ, giving himself up for the church, Like, isn't that the whole point of the gospel? Isn't like the whole point of everything in the Bible, rather than the whole point being about somebody giving a sermon that is sort of like, it's very man-centered. I don't know if that makes any sense. Did you, when you grew up Protestant, like, did you have those sorts of feelings when you started to engage with the Mass?
The Protestant church that I grew up in, it had an image of Christ at the very back, small image of Christ, and we never had any sacrament of any type, anytime.
What kind of church was it?
It was Protestant. So it was, in Canada, that is Presbyterian and Methodist together, I think.
Interesting. Okay.
Is the Protestant church in Canada.
Wow.
And so there was a choir. There was a choir that they had a place to be up there. And so that was nice. Definitely. And it was a minister who would give the sermon. And sometimes little kids would go up and sing, depending on the time of year. And there would be someone playing the piano. And my grandmother played the piano in the Protestant church. And my other grandmother sung in the choir. So it wasn't like I didn't have any love for the Protestant church, because my family was active in there. Not my family, but my extended family was active in it. But yet that wasn't enough to hold me there. Yeah.
I kind of felt like I feel the same way. And I still feel like I'm on journey to understand these sorts of things. Like, I don't exactly know which church I belong to, I guess. Convictionally, I have a sense of it, but even the way that you articulate the doctrines of the faith, like, there are churches and denominations that I think articulate the doctrines of the faith really well, but then when you go to their service, their churches, it doesn't even align with it.
Yeah,
and so
in
that's
this
really
church,
confusing.
So this church that I go to, I went there one day and it was at the very beginning, and then I stopped, and now I've gone back there again. They had us pray for the Glasgow climate change people, and I was like, I'm not. You can't ask me to pray for that. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Other than praying for their repentance, right?
I'm not doing it. But then again, I realized, oh, there's Christ again, giving me another challenge. It's like, that's not what it's about, Tammy. You go there anyway. You go there because you can, with your devotion, then you can help that church to be redeemed. And I think that is out. It's just up to us. This church I go to is right at the bottom of the hill from the house. It's the church. It's the one. Really? It's the Catholic Church. It's right there. And am I too good for it? No, I'm not. I know I'm not. And so I'm just going to go, even though it's very modern. It's got cool stained glass, but it's all, what do you call it? Modern art. There's no iconography. So it's a really modern architecture as well. And it's Franciscan monks that preach. Really? I really like them, and they tell good stories. And I really like them, and they need a new sound system. It's true. I can't hear them very well, but then if you sit right under the speaker, you can hear them pretty good. And so, but you got to kind of find, when you get there, you think, okay, now how can I make this into my church? How can I do that? And then, I'll have to go for coffee with everybody. That's my next thing. After church, they all go for coffee and a donut. I don't eat donuts, but I can have a drink of coffee. So instead of thinking I want to go have breakfast, I have to think I have to go have coffee and shake these people's hands. And so that's the next thing I have to do. And then I'll actually belong to that church in a way that is complete.
I think that's interesting. One thing that I thought of while you were talking, and it's something that my family struggles with that I'm trying to think through right now. And I guess you tell me if you don't want to talk about this, but it does seem like in your family, there are different, you mentioned that your son's wife is Protestant.
Yeah.
You're Catholic. I mean, I don't know where all the other people land on the spectrum
Protestants,
of
mostly
Christianity.
All of them.
What's that?
Protestants, all of them.
So how do you deal with that? Because even within my family, but like as on a personal, because these are deeply doctrinal, personal decisions, right? Like they're very personal, I guess. And like, I can think of my dad and he's low church. My dad is like a Puritan. Like, I don't know if you know the Puritans, but he is as Puritan as they come. Like, I think his hatred for the Catholic Church runs deep. He's a classic Puritan.
What happened? Why does he hate the Catholic Church?
Oh, well, okay. I can tell you.
Sure.
I will try to go not super long, but my dad grew up in a super messed up house. So his father was alcoholic, extremely abusive. And I don't use abusive in like you got spanked once. Yes. I use it in like actually abusive way.
That's too bad.
So neglected, super messed up upbringing. And then he had a vision when he was 17. Well, he was like fifth year senior in high school. He started he like got drunk for the first time when he was in fifth grade, did drugs. It was just terrible life. And then when he was 17, he was out smoking a cigarette on a back street in the kind of like a farmland area. And he had a vision while smoking the cigarette that these hands came, and he was standing on a carpet, and these hands came and they pulled the carpet from under him, and beneath the carpet was a pitch black pit, basically. And he felt God say, that's where you're going.
Right.
You're going down. Wow. That's where you're going. And so nobody proclaimed the gospel to him. He had a vision, which is really interesting. Because Paul says, how will they know if you don't, in the New Testament, Paul says, how will they know the gospel if you don't proclaim it? So I do think that that's indicative of a culture. We don't proclaim the gospel the way that we should. He had never heard it up until that point. I mean, maybe on TV or televangelism, but not actually interpersonally. And so that happened. The street that he was on, interestingly, was called Lonely Road. So that's really interesting. And he went home and he grabbed the only Bible that they had in their house, and he started reading it, King James version. He started from the beginning. And he says, he'll still say it today, he'll say that that he felt an actual war happen, a spiritual war. He felt like there was good and evil as he was reading the Bible, that it was there, and they were both pulling on him, and he had to make a decision. Yeah. And so he decided to become a Christian. Obviously, everybody in his family was not a Christian, so that was not, they were like volatile towards Christians. They were volatile towards things that were good, because it's just a messed up family. And so he converted his two sisters, and then he got married, and that goes on and on. But essentially, my dad's whole faith has been like, you're on your own, basically. So like he didn't necessarily have a church or people that guided him in the right direction. Actually, it's been situation after situation after situation in which churches that he's gone to have fallen apart, or there's been some scandal or disaster. But he began to study the Bible himself. Like I remember like 6 months ago, and I'll try to go faster. I'm talking a long time, but 6 months ago, we were looking through old notes of his, and he would read the Bible, and then he would find a word he didn't understand, and then he would write it down, and he would go find the dictionary definition of it. So he would just study everything himself. It was very personal, very individual. And I think as he did, he just went into the stream of like highly reformed Christianity, Baptist Christianity. And through that, reading like John Calvin, and guys who were associated with Luther and Calvin and these early reformers, he kind of ended up in that stream of anti-Catholic Puritanism. I mean, Puritan, that stream, he just like ended up in that. Now, I think it's indicative of like his father, if I want to get psychological, was like an authoritarian figure. And I think that he views the Catholic Church, the papal situation, as like an authoritarian father. Again,
it usually comes from family troubles.
I think so.
It does. Jordan's mother, they were all Protestants, and she loved the church, and she went to church till she died. She sung in the choir. But one of her aunts was Catholic. And in this little town in Saskatchewan, they had, I don't know why, anyway, they had a graveyard for the Protestant people. They must have been a Catholic graveyard too, I imagine. But the Catholic aunt wasn't married with the rest of the family. She had to be married outside of the graveyard, and she faulted the Catholic Church for that. But that was her community's decision.
Right.
And just like with your dad, well, that's not the Catholic Church. That's his father. And so people make these decisions based not on the actual faith, but the circumstances of their lives. That's how they make their decisions about faith. And that's not surprising, but there's other ways to do it.
Yeah. And I will say, and I think that that's totally true. I even think that that's true for myself, but I think it's also I guess in defense of my dad, I also think he studied a lot.
Oh, good for him. Yes.
And so he really looks into this. And I think on a deeply convictional level, he is just very convicted.
He doesn't want to hate his dad, so he hates the church.
Well, I don't.
Well, I mean, we all do that. That's just a guess. I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure that's true, but that's just from because. But we all do that. We definitely do that. I used to hate the telephone. I probably still do. I don't like to use it because my dad was a realtor and he'd come home and people would call to see a house. And so I just hated the phone. I didn't want to hate my dad.
Right.
I hated the TV too because he'd sit down and watch TV. So I hated the TV. I just wanted to be with my dad. And so I hated everything that took me away from my dad. And we all do that. We all do that.
I'll have to think about that because I've had a difficult time finding, because I hate non-denominationalism. So I got to think about why I hate non-denominationalism.
Yeah, no, you got to think about that.
I got to think about it because I hate it because I grew up in it and it's it's full of lies and it's full of
maybe it is. Corruption. I don't know. Maybe it is.
Oh, it is. Oh, it's full
then
of.
Maybe that's a pure hate.
So that's the big question, though. I mean, I think that's the question my dad has investigated his whole life, and that I've been trying to investigate is. There is a deep divide between Catholic and Protestant. We can't get over that. Like we don't believe the same thing at the core. And it's a question of, are they two different gospels? I don't know. I mean, I've really tried to look into it, and
one's a lot older than the other.
Depends on how you, it depends on how you would describe that or define that, because I think that earlier church fathers in a lot of ways were more in alignment with particular Reformed doctrines than what the Catholic Church was prior to the Reformation. And I think...
So you think the seeds of the church were from longer ago than when the church was formed?
I think the question is, the central question is the church the doctrine or is it the institution? And the Catholic question...
It's the institution for sure.
And I would say it's the doctrine. And that's where the Catholics and the Protestants disagree, because I would say that the seeds of the church are the New Testament apostles writing. Like that's the New Testament. That's like what it is. Mm-hmm. And the Catholics would say, yes, it's that. And also the papal succession that came from Peter onward, and the bishops and the archbishops, and what came in the institutionalized church as it went through time. And mm-hmm. I think it's only institutionalized as much as the institution is in alignment with what the New Testament says specifically. And that's so like if the Catholic Church says
it's going to be inaccurate for sure, because we're people,
right?
And everything we do is tainted with a snake. Mm-hmm. Everything we do is tainted with a snake. So if we're looking for purity, you pretty much have to, get on your knees outside somewhere and just get across and just believe.
And I think, and that's where I think this is where I have a dilemma, like a personal dilemma as to what exactly do I think Christianity is, because I think that the things that the Catholics have built and created, we were just talking about this driving through our town. There's a big Catholic church like in the middle of the town, and it's beautiful. And there's a cross at the top of the steeple, as it should be. And it's the place where I imagine in times earlier than our time, people went to and they congregated at, and maybe like the town hall meetings were held at the church, usually in America, rather than
bingo in the basement.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like potlucks and things, like people used to do that stuff.
Yeah,
and
pancake breakfasts. Yeah.
Yeah, pancake, everything. And I think that was I think the Catholics are really good at creating literally architecture. And we talked about this in the last podcast we did, but just literal architecture and city planning that are designed towards God, like towards the church, to bring you to the church. And you can see it in my own town that it was designed with the church at the center where people would go to the church. Like that's the Catholics, like I think were the ones who articulated that best. And I don't think the Protestants have done a very good job at that. And so I find myself in this very strange, contradictory situation in my own mind where a lot of what the Catholics created, I appreciate, but the core doctrines I don't agree with. So it's just weird. And that's probably a personal problem.
I don't go into those weeds. I don't, I go into my own weeds for sure. I have my own weeds. Those are your weeds. I have my own weeds.
Yeah, my weed. Yeah, we got different weeds, but that's okay. Weeds. So we have different weeds. Can we talk about? I did this all backwards. Beforehand, I said we were going to talk about abortion first, but can we talk about abortion because I think it's
and then I have to go.
Thing. Yes, no problem.
Okay, so
go ahead.
So I would say that I had an abortion when I was 25, something like that, before I was married. And then I had another abortion after I had my 2 kids. And I looked it up, and you would call in the Catholic Church, it would be called an abortion. In the Protestant Church, it wouldn't be, or even in the country, it wouldn't be, because it was a medical decision.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But the Catholic Church doesn't believe that there's any trouble unless there's trouble with the mother, she's going to die, or there's specific things that they will allow you, or if the fetus is dead already inside you,
sure.
Then of course there's a procedure to take the fetus out. But in terms of the Catholic Church, that was also an abortion. And it was a difficult decision because I was 35, I guess I was 35. I had 2 kids. I got pregnant again. I was bleeding. So it wasn't a healthy pregnancy. I could tell it wasn't a healthy pregnancy. I went to the doctor because I was 35. They did testing on me and then asked me if I would do genetic testing. They found if a baby has a certain increase in diameter of the fluid behind its spinal cord, then there's a chance it might have Down syndrome.
Oh, wow.
And when they do, then they do an amniocentesis, and then they actually take blood right from your placenta, and it is the most magical pink color I have ever seen.
Really?
Oh, wow. Like if I was going to be a baby, that's where I'd want to be. I'd want to be in there because it was just the most beautiful color. Anyway, that's how they can tell that the baby has Down syndrome. And we had Michaela at home at that point, and she was really sick. And we decided that we had our hands full and that it wasn't going to be. And so then we ended that pregnancy. So that was when I was 35. And that was hard. And was it right? Probably not. But of course, none of us are right. So we make stupid errors. And, the Catholic Church would say, you just play that out. And I should have just played it out because I think I probably would have lost the baby anyway because I was bleeding. And you're not supposed to be bleeding when you're pregnant.
Sure.
But anyway, that's the decision I made. And in retrospect, I would have liked to just carry it out and have the consequences be what God has intended. I would have rather done that. Now, when I was 25, Can
I ask real quick, why would you, I think some young people might
feel that way now?
Yeah, why would you want to have the consequences be what God intends?
Because I think that with God's help, I would have the courage and the strength to go through with it. And that it would be a growing experience and a maturing experience. And God would decide what it was for me. God would have decided what it was for me. But in the way that we do now, we make our own decisions. And the government helps us do it. The hospitals help us do it. you know, so it's a very difficult situation to make the right decision in, because even your family might even support you. I can't remember if we talked to our families about this. I think it was just Jordan and I that talked it through and made the decision. But
did you know that? Did you view this as a human life, or
sure.
Okay. I don't know, because sometimes I think I hear people say, "Well, it's not a person."
Yeah,
until
no, I think that's a silly argument.
Yeah,
I think that's a silly argument.
Yeah.
You know, it's very early on, because you don't get that done after about, I think, 15 weeks. So it's very early on that all of that is decided. But that was very hard. And it was only really going back to the church and going to confession and talking about that is been helpful to me. You know, anything else that I've done in my life was not helpful, but that was helpful. And so
just repenting, confessing.
Yeah, that was helpful. And also for the time when I was 25, and that was a selfish act for sure. And I think most abortions are selfish acts. I think, 99% of them probably are selfish acts. And that was a selfish act. And I was young and secular. And also, this is something that I'd done when I was a teenager. Before I left home, I wasn't happy with my mom and dad. I didn't understand them. My siblings left home when I was 12, so then I was at home with them and my friends. And my mom and dad were working and curling and golfing, and they had very busy lives. And my dad was on the school board and on the hospital board and in the Kinsman. And he was a very busy person doing good civic duty. And, but I think was lonely without my siblings in the house. And I was also, there was a lot of oil and gas up there. So there's a lot of money, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol. And so a lot of our teenage time together was saturated with drugs and alcohol. So that makes your decision-making very bad.
Yeah.
And like I said, I used my boyfriends instrumentally when I was in high school. I didn't know that I was supposed to be choosing a husband because, of course, you're not told that. We don't teach our young girls that we're choosing. That's what our heart is yearning for, is for a husband. Yeah. And so when we choose our boyfriend, we are choosing someone that we would marry. And that has to be foremost in our minds. And that was never in the conversations when I was a young girl. So that didn't help either. And I was older than that. I wasn't a teenager when I had an abortion, but I was on the birth control pill. So that gave me the license to be instrumental with men. So then I could sleep with my boyfriends and not be worried about getting pregnant. Well, then I wasn't worried about whether what I did was right or wrong. Didn't matter. Yeah, well, that's not a good situation to be in, because then you don't have to think seriously about what you're doing. So it just relieves you of all the moral conundrums that you need to go through to grow up. So that's why people are staying immature. Yeah. Is because they've been given ways to not grow up.
Yeah.
And so that's not helpful. And so then when I was 25 and I had that, I was living with a man again, living with a man for 2 years. I had decided that relationship was over, and I was, but I didn't leave the apartment. I slept on the couch. And I asked my boyfriend to leave, and he didn't leave. But I should have left. I mean, if I wanted to leave, I should have left. And I didn't. So it was, again, me not doing what I needed to do, not insisting on what I needed. That was that mistake.
Is that sort of just like naive young girl? Like, I'm just.
It's more than that. When I forgot to tell you, when I was 17, when I left home, I told my parents I would never come back, that I was leaving and I would never come back. So I made an inner vow not to go home. And so when I got pregnant, I didn't call my mom.
Really?
And I didn't call my sisters. I made that decision on my own. And it was because I'm pretty sure now it was because I made that inner vow. And so I had put a wall between the people that I needed in that moment to talk to. And I never talked to them. I made this decision on my own. Yeah.
Did you ever ask them later on, like, what they thought of that time period for you?
Oh, I was a lot younger than my siblings. They were married. They were starting to have kids. So it was also very sad for me because I got pregnant at the same time as my oldest sister had a baby. So I would have had a baby at the same time as her.
Oh, wow.
And that would have brought me into a relationship with her that I had never had because she was 7 years older than me.
Wow.
Yeah. And so did they ever talk to me about it? I was on the birth control pill and I was depressed and hard to get along with. So if nobody could talk to me then because I couldn't listen because I was not an easy person to. And, it was funny because I did have a lot of trouble with my sisters. And when my mom was diagnosed with dementia, I thought, okay, I can't have this difficult relationship with my sisters anymore. We have to get along. We have to really band together now. And I said to Jordan, what do you think I should do? And he said, you have to stop having conversations with them and you have to just listen to them. And so I stopped having conversations with them. I stopped anything that I was going to add to the conversation. I didn't add anymore. I just listened. And we started to get along much better. And I realized that I was not listening. And so
was that difficult to do?
No, that was easy to start listening.
Really?
I could just shut my mouth. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty disagreeable too. So I could just talk myself. I could just command myself,
But I always find this just makes me sound like a terrible person, but I have a difficult time listening. It's weird because I do this podcast and I have to listen to people a lot.
Yeah, that's right. But it's good training.
Yeah. and I listen to my wife. I don't know. It's a very strange thing. What did you find that they had to say that you weren't listening for?
See that now this is the rest of the story. So my oldest sister got dementia and died. She died 2 years ago. She was 7 years older than me. So she was like my mom in a way. When you have a sibling that's much older than you, they're kind of like your mother.
Yeah.
And so this was in 2002 and she died in 2024 maybe. That's so it was. Wow. So this was quite a long time ago. So we had 20 years together. That was good because I stopped talking. And so I stopped talking and it was a weekend where we were getting my mom diagnosed with dementia. We thought she was depressed, but she actually had dementia. So it was a sad weekend.
Yeah.
And we went whale watching with my sister and my aunt, my dad's sister. And it was a real nice day. We went whale watching. This is Vancouver Island, right? So we went whale watching and then we went to a restaurant and we went into this restaurant and I thought, this isn't a good place. It must've been moldy in there or something. I had kind of feeling like it wasn't a good place, but we sat down and it might've been a moldy place. Cause when we sat down at the table, my sister looked at me and she said, you've never done anything on your own. My parents have always helped you with everything. Your life has been absolutely with no trouble at any point. You are spoiled rotten. And then she looked at me and she goes, but you're a good mother. And I was like, wow, that was weird. And I looked at Jordan, did you hear that? That was really weird. That was really weird. So that's after a whole weekend of me listening. That's what she said.
Yeah.
And then she said the same thing to me the next year, exactly the same thing to me. She told me how horrible I was and how spoiled I was. And then that I was a good mother. And I was like, wow, that was also really weird. But I think that when she was 17, her boyfriend she wanted to marry was killed in a car accident. And she was 18 and I was 12. And she came home for the funeral and he was a home guy. And so I knew him. He was the dentist's son. And I thought they were like Romeo and Juliet. I was all, 12 years old and he died. And I was traumatized by the loss of that fantasy, but she lost her fiance. And I think she looked at me at 12, no pain in my heart, no loss in my soul.
Yeah.
completely surrounded by my mom and dad still at home and my friends and everything. And she just kept that memory and never, ever updated it. Maybe I never listened and helped her update that memory. So she told me I was spoiled, never did anything of my own. My parents always helped me. Sounds like that from that time to me. Yeah. And then, but then, you know, she looks at me and thinks, but you're a good mother. So then it would update. But I think she was already, both my mom and my sister, by the time they were 40, they were starting to show signs of dementia. So it hit them very early. Anyway, after that time, we had a great 20 years together, and then she died. But I learned right then and there that what I had to say should be paid. What I had to say had to be discernment. I had to bring discernment into what I said, and other than that, don't talk at all.
I'm going to ask a strange question just about, I mean, you mentioned 2 abortions, and it's a strange thing. Like, you're talking about how your sister had to update her understanding of who you were in her own mind. And there was like a conflicting narrative. And at some point that updated, I think that probably happens for people individually as they look at themselves. Like, there are narratives or understandings of ourselves that we have from 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And how do you update that? Yeah. Like, what did you do? Because obviously you're not the same person that you were when you had those abortions. And I think that this is one of the reasons why women are so volatile when it comes to the conversation of abortion in the modern age, because there's a lot of resentment. There's a lot of anger.
Yeah, but we feel that other people are the problem, but it was our own decisions. That's the problem. It's taking responsibility for our own decisions. How
do you do that specifically? How did you do that? It sounds like you repented and confessed, but yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I went to Al-Anon. Al-Anon is AA for people who've grown up with alcoholic parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I went with a friend of mine. And when I went to the meeting and I heard them speaking, I thought, oh yeah, I could probably, I see where I've had thoughts like that, you know, of selfish thoughts or controlling thoughts or blaming thoughts or resentful thoughts or fearful thoughts. And people are all talking about how we would read a reading and then people would say, you know, I used to have a terrible relationship with my mother. She was so resentful and I couldn't listen to her. And so then I left and we never had, the love in our relationship was never good. But it was all about me looking at those other people and not what was in my heart. But now it's in my heart. Can I forgive my mom for that? Well, of course I can. She had whatever she was dealing with. I don't know what it was. Who am I to judge her? Right. So Al-Anon gives you that ability to look at yourself and to find out that you're just as much of a mess as she is. Otherwise you could maybe get something going together. But that all I can do is to improve my own relationship with myself, to reflect on who I am and to ask God for the grace to help me to see a better way. And so there's a lot of pausing, not reacting, but pausing,
right,
and listening, right, and all of that. So you build these skills as you practice.
I think that that's important, and I think that that's helpful because right before we started recording, I was just telling you that I was looking back to see when the first YouTube video or whatever came out of Jordan at the protests in Toronto, and I was watching that video, and then you came on the recording. We started talking, and it's been 10 years in October. It's according to the video I watched. So in October, it's been 10 years. And if I think back to the last 10 years and just being somebody who grew up in this society, in this culture, a lot of anger, resentfulness, a lot of moral problems, we live in a very problematic time, and I grew up in that. So it's a little bit different even from people who are older, who kind of have seen this thing through, like just growing up in the smack dab in the middle of it is like weird. And just seeing that one of the core things that Jordan was saying for the past 10 years that seems to be pretty obvious, but everybody needed to hear it, was you just got to tell the truth. Tell the truth. If, at least don't lie, basically. That's like the core of it. That's the center of it, which in some way, I'm like so thankful that he said that. In other ways, it's like, wow, if we have a culture that thinks that that's the most profound thing ever, that's a little bit dangerous too, because that means that we haven't been doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just, so it's been 10 years since that whole thing happened. You discussed how there's, from when you were young in your 20s and 30s and to who you are now, things have changed for you on a personal level. You become more devoted to the Catholic faith and you are more devoted to Christ. I guess over the past 10 years, looking back, and this is sort of, I guess we could maybe conclude with this. How have you changed?
Jordan wrote down a whole bunch of things when I entered the Catholic Church. He said, "How have you changed?" And so we talked about the virtues. Let's see if I can reborn virtues. So he knew me when I was a kid, right? We met when we were 7 and 8. He said, "I'm more like a kid now."
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that nice? I'm more playful, less cynical, less volatile, less concerned with control and power, more patient, more loving, more centered on the well-being of others, more hospitable, more obedient, more in the moment, more beautiful, warmer, more discriminating, more elegant, more composed, more resilient, more graceful, more socially appropriate, better as a mother, easier to negotiate with, more willing to listen and speak, more on target with words, deeper thinker, easier to work with, a better boss, sexier, more trust in a courageous way, more courageous in a trusting way, and more self-reflective. That's a lot of changes.
I was just going to say, that's like everything.
That's a lot of changes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And those were his.
Those are all the things he thought
He wrote those.
Yeah.
Do you think they're accurate?
Yep. I do.
Yeah. And do you think that that's specifically related to the Catholic to becoming a Christian, or do you think it's all
it's
just
this whole
everything?
journey? Definitely, it's this journey to Christ. That's what it is. Yeah, absolutely.
And do you think that what happened 10 years ago was like a massive catalyzing aspect?
Yeah, and I answered it, right? I answered a call for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And last night I woke up at 4 a.m. with this word, Antwerp.
What is it?
Antwerp.
Okay. What
Belgium.
is it?
It's in Belgium. Antwerp.
Oh, wow.
And the Holy Spirit. And I thought, what the heck is that? So I like Antwerp. What?
Right.
So then I said, what does Antwerp have to do with the Catholic Church? Because I'm like, what is this?
Right.
So there was a saint in the from 1200 to 1260 named Hedwig of Antwerp.
Okay.
Hadewijk. And she was a mystic. And just really simply, who is she? Let's see. She developed.
And this just popped into your head, just to clarify. It came
popped
into your head.
My head. It woke me up.
Interesting.
It woke me up. It's like, pay attention, Tammy. And to what? What's that? I don't know what that is. Okay. So she is the figure most directly linked to Antwerp. So I thought, okay, that maybe this makes sense. In the Christian tradition, she is a saint who was moving from self-centeredness, get this, selfishness, self-will, or egoism towards genuine humility. Her writings, visions, letters, and poems that were written in Middle Dutch center on love, understood as divine love itself, called Mine, M-I-N-N-E. In them, she describes a path which unites a form of holy pride or noble confidence with radical humility and self-renunciation. So that's what came to me in the middle of the night in preparation for our podcast.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I think that's exactly.
She wrote a book, but I can't seem to find it in English yet.
So you'll have to learn the language, right?
No, I'm not going to learn the language. No, I've tried. That's a hard language. Have you tried to learn that language? That's a hard language.
I can't. I'm bad enough at English, so that's interesting.
She has a book called The Book of Visions.
And that just came into your head. You knew nothing about that.
I knew nothing about this. Nothing. So now I'm going to learn about it.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's interesting because I think that does kind of summarize this conversation. Obviously, we've talked about women a lot, and I'm a man. I don't understand men. I don't understand myself enough to even begin to try to understand women to some degree. Women are confusing, and so are men. But we've talked about like feminism and abortion and just the changes that have happened over the past 100 years in America, even some of the technologies, birth control and all of that sort of stuff. And then things that have changed in you. And I think that's sort of the central point. And it's very, from the Christian perspective, it's just the same thing that's been taught forever. Like, stop being self-centered and start being focused on the well-being and goodness of like doing what's right for other people. Yeah. And it's like, don't be selfish, basically. Right. And I think that is at the core, that's sort of the conversation around abortion. That's
so that was my problem. I was selfish for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And highly disagreeable people seem to be more selfish.
And seeking pleasure too.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that going on. I definitely was a part of that.
I really believe that the only way to get out of that is through a supernatural.
Yes, experience. I agree.
That's the only way that I got out of it. I like know exactly how it happened. And I had like a supernatural, like I just felt, I prayed and I felt God be like, okay, like I repented and I prayed very, very hard, like very intensely and very focused. Necessary. And I woke up the next morning and everything changed and it was very strange.
Praise God.
And I've thought about that a lot. Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like we could talk forever, but I appreciate you taking all this time to talk. I really do.
Thanks for the invitation. It's good to see you again.
Yes, you too.